Hello, my name is Alyssa Benner and my presentation is on the betta fish's physical adaptation of the labyrinth organ. So for starters, what is the labyrinth organ? The labyrinth organ is a respiratory organ located just above the gills. The labyrinth organ is made up of paired suprabranchial chambers which are extensions of the first gill arch. The chambers have complex, folded bony structures covered with respiratory epithelium. Epithelium is thin tissue that lines hollow structures. This drawing shows the location of the labyrinth organ in relation to the gills and gill rakers. The red represents the gills, the orange represents the gill rakers, and the yellow structure is a labyrinth organ. So how does the labyrinth organ develop? Betta fish babies, also called betta fry, fully depend on their gills to breathe at birth. The labyrinth organ is obtained in the first 9 days after hatching. It isn't until 3 to 6 weeks later that the labyrinth organ is fully developed and can be used to breathe. The picture provided is of a labyrinth organ depicting the pattern of the folds and curves in as much detail as I could portray. Now that you know the structure and development of the labyrinth organ, what does the labyrinth organ do? The labyrinth organ's function is to obtain oxygen from above the surface of the water. This is especially important because betta fish's natural habitat is usually very low in oxygen. Betta fish will often float near the water's surface, therefore making it easier for them to obtain oxygen in the air above them. Sometimes bubbles can be observed at the surface where they are. The picture depicts the behavior observed by betta fish when using their labyrinth organ to air breathe. They float at the water's surface, remaining submerged, and they breathe the oxygen in the air above the water. The labyrinth organ also affected the behavior of betta fish. An example of a behavioral adaptation associated with the labyrinth organ is bubble nesting during reproduction. In bubble nesting, eggs develop in environments with elevated temperature, low pH, and dissolved oxygen. The eggs are placed at the surface, increasing oxygen exchange, but the bubble nest ensures the eggs don't dry out. This reproductive behavioral adaptation is all thanks to the physical adaptation of the labyrinth organ. The picture shows a male betta fish creating a bubble nest at the water's surface, a behavioral adaptation used during breeding made possible by the labyrinth organ. Most importantly, why is the labyrinth organ necessary for the survival of betta fish in the wild? Betta fish are native to Asia, where they live in shallow water such as ponds, marshes, and slow-moving streams. The labyrinth organ is important because these waters typically are at low pH levels and don't have sufficient oxygen levels to depend on the oxygen in the water. This adaptation allows betta fish to live in very extreme environments if need be, based on weather and water conditions. Betta fish are even able to live in moist clay mud during dry seasons. As long as their environment is moist, they can rely on the air above the water's surface for its oxygen source. In this image, an example of a natural habitat of betta fish is shown. This is the kind of murky, low oxygen, low pH water that requires betta fish to have the labyrinth organ in order to survive. Evidence of the adaptation of the labyrinth organ is the presence of the labyrinth organ in many other fish. There is a group of fish named Anabantoidae. This group is believed to have formed about 60 million years ago. There are 3 families in this group: Osphrognomidae, Helostomatidae, and Anabantidae. Betta fish are a part of the Osphrognomidae. In the picture, there are 12 different species of fish, all related, all containing labyrinth organ, part of the Anabantoidae group. So to summarize, the labyrinth organ is found above the gills. It is structured with bony folds covered in tissue and has a very detailed maze-like pattern, hence the name labyrinth organ. The labyrinth organ develops 3 to 6 weeks after hatching. Until then, betta fish are dependent on their gills. The function of the labyrinth organ is to obtain oxygen from the air above the water's surface. A behavioral adaptation associated with the labyrinth organ is bubble nesting, where the eggs are placed at the surface to increase gas exchange. All of this is important because the environment betta fish are naturally found in are shallow waters with low pH, elevated temperatures, and low oxygen. This picture is of my betta fish, Santa, and he's eating. He was the inspiration for researching this topic in the first place. The 5 references listed are the sources of my research for the information in the bullet points. Underneath each picture on the slides was the citation for each image that I found. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a lot about betta fish and their labyrinth organ.